Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this session today on CMMC Accreditation. Are you prepared for this? I'm Tom Leahy. I'm the SVP of Sales and Business Development with SureShield. I'm joined on the call by our CEO, Sanjay Kumar, and our CTO, Chande Bilagu, who will be participating and helping answer questions at the end of the session. We've all been in the field of compliance and risk for, well, a combined probably 60, 70 years. And we know this is a topic of great interest right now for those who are in the Department of Defense ecosystem. As you know, there's some new requirements that are coming and some preparations you're going to need to do to be able to continue to participate in contracts in this ecosystem. I'm going to allow, just as a message, at the end of the session, there is an area in Zoom for Q&A, so please type your questions in there. But as far as the presentation today, we've done the introduction. We're going to talk a little bit about the current compliance requirements because there are things that you need to be complying with today and doing today. The cybersecurity maturity model certification, what that is, where it's at, as we understand right now, the projected timeline for you as a provider or supplier or a servicer in this area. A little bit about the overall ecosystem that's being established for this. So the various types of services you can take avail of to help you get ready in this process, some key tools in getting prepared. And then we're going to show you some tools that we've provided to a lot of folks in this area that help them in that preparation process by using some technology that can help you get yourself ready and make sure that you're going to meet the requirements and can continue to obviously service in this area. And we'll provide a brief product demonstration with this. Well, as I mentioned, please field any questions in the Q&A area. And then for those of you who are interested, and we typically have a lot of takers on this when we do these sessions, is we're going to provide a free trial of a solution that can help you in kind of gathering all these requirements and doing these assessments and helping you see where you stand. So we'll go ahead and go on to the first areas. And of course, for those of you that are serving the defense industrial base, we believe there's over 300,000 providers currently in this area. You have the requirements today to be submitting a NIST 800-171 score and assessment. And how did this all come about? As you know, we've had significant issues with foreign entities basically stealing a lot of very secure and private information from our government. We've had aircraft carrier designs stolen. We've had, planes that have had designs taken from us. There's been a lot of espionage and infiltration, and a lot of that has come because generally with the suppliers that have been supplying the DoD. And so several years ago, they implemented the NIST process, which was really a methodology for assuring what I would call a cyber posture, good cyber posture. So for all their providers to prevent this type of stealing. And as you know, if you probably have done this, but if not, you have scores that need to be submitted to the supplier performance risk system. Today, you are supposed to be doing your NIST 800-171 assessment, providing that assessment, submitting your score, and then also submitting with that in areas where you are not currently compliant, a system security plan to show how you're overall protecting this, and then a plan of action and milestone report. And many suppliers are doing that and continue to do that, and it is a continued requirement for you today. If you have or have not done this, you need to have complied with this process. But what came of this, and what the DoD continued to recognize is that there was issues that continued to happen. And part of that is because the NIST 800-171 is a self-assessment process, meaning the suppliers that were doing this were doing their own assessments. They were submitting that information, and perhaps in some cases they were indicating that they were complying with certain things and weren't. And so there continued to be issues of data theft. So back a couple of years ago, they decided to move this up into, I would call, a more tighter process. And that's what began the cybersecurity maturity model process. It's actually set now to be implemented in 2021. I do believe they're running a little behind on that. We'll talk about this with the timelines. But how is it different? It differs in that the NIST is a self-assessment, and the CMMC cybersecurity model certification is going to be a third-party audit. So you're going to need to register and contract with an independent party that's going to come in and actually do their own assessment on whether you are meeting the requirements. So it's an independent third party. It puts a little bit more muscle, I guess, behind making sure that these things are in process. You're going to have an independent reviewer who will come in, and then they're going to determine whether you're meeting those requirements. And if you're not, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to bid on contracts. Now, also keep in mind that there are different levels. There's 5 different levels of CMMC cyber posture. At the highest 5th level, those are the highest levels of very critical security related issues. So in this process, you're going to want to determine what level you as an organization are going to need to be certified at. And at level 3, that level 3 is anybody that is dealing with any what they call controlled or information, critical information within the CUI data that's in that system. What we have found is many of the organizations that we've worked with to date, we have some tools that can help identify that CUI data in your environment. Those who maybe thought they didn't have it, once running this tool, found out they did. So a lot of the providers will be minimally coming in at a level 3. And as I mentioned, it requires a third-party assessment audit to validate that compliance. There are going to be certified third-party accreditation organizations, or C3PAOs, that are currently in the process of getting certified themselves to do these accreditation assessments and submit that information to the DoD and give that accreditation seal of approval to the providers that are in the environment. There will also be others in that ecosystem that you can rely on or work with to help you in preparing, assessing your own organization, doing remediation activities, and they will have various types of certification processes as well. So as of today, there are over 177 planned or pending C3PAOs, and then over 2,600 providers in the ecosystem providing various services to those. So in preparing, what is it you need to do to kind of prepare? As I mentioned, they are a little bit perhaps behind on the whole overall process. But very importantly, the beginning of this is just understanding the requirements. You're encouraged to, look through the CMMC requirements, make sure you understand them well. Then go ahead on in and identify what is going to be the desired maturity level you are going to want to come in at. And just a note, where there is some continued uniformity with NIST 800-171 and CMMC. The NIST 800-171 has what they call 110 controls, different areas of oversight for your organization. At the CMMC level 3, there are 120 controls, but 110 of those are with your NIST, are the same as NIST. And so we're going to show you some ways in which we help simplify that process so that you can do the work you need to do today while still getting yourself prepared for the work you're going to need to be doing in the very near future. But it's important to identify that desired maturity level and really conduct a pre-assessment. Before you start getting into this process, you're going to want to know kind of where you stand, because you certainly don't want an accreditor to come in and start identifying a whole bunch of different compliance gaps that you may have. So it should start with a pre-assessment. You can do that. A lot of folks will do that internally. We encourage organizations or suppliers to take advantage of a tool that we have that can allow you to very quickly and cheaply at least give yourself a sense of where you stand, and then utilize that information to determine what other resources you may need to employ to fix any compliance gaps that you have. And once you've done that, that is the time really to go out onto, there's a CMMC AB that's called the Accreditation Board. They have a website that has great information and excellent content, but you can go there and go to the marketplace and identify the C3PAOs and choose one that you will choose to have come in and do your assessment. You'll conduct that assessment with a registered C3PO, and then you, I believe, are going to be given some time, if they find additional issues, to resolve any findings, and then submit that to the review board, and hopefully, knock on wood, receive that certification. But for anybody, again, coming into this in the future, you're going to have to go through this process. So if you want to continue to service contracts or you want to bid on new contracts, you're going to have to be CMMC certified. And it's expected that everybody at a minimum this process will be completed by 2025. So with that, there is going to be an accreditation designation, and that will last for a number of years. Now, I've worked in the healthcare sector for a long time. They used to do what they would call a joint commission accreditation surveys. They used to be once every 3 years. And as that model matured, it became more of a continued readiness process. You would never know when they are coming. And you can expect that this will be the same, because this is just one more step in a process to try to help tighten up the cyber posture of all the organizations that are serving. And you can expect that it will continue to get refined, and that this will not be a static process. So even when you go through it, you're going to need to continue to be assessing yourself and looking at where new vulnerabilities may have been introduced and fix those vulnerabilities. So last year was more of the formation of the program, as you can see, and just a note, this graphic on the right does come from the CMMC AB website. So they have, as I mentioned, great content on that site to help you understand where you are and what you need to be doing. So really last year was an understanding and a formation, the building out of the ecosystem, allowing providers to kind of learn. And really last year, if you hadn't, you should have started to do things like identifying gaps and doing some early assessment processes, and begin to plan the remediations you may need to do in order to meet these requirements. And this year it's now remediate, and they'd indicated winter, spring of 2021. We're looking at winter because currently, as it stands, there's only 3 approved C3PAOs. So they, as I mentioned, they have to go through their own process to get certified to be an accreditation oversight group. There are over 177 in there. So over this summertime, you can expect that this is going to continue to ramp up, and the overall process will begin towards the end of the year. So now is the time for you as an organization, if you haven't already, to begin that process. And what does this ecosystem consist of? As I mentioned, you'll have your C3PAOs. They will go through a certain process to be accredited or certified themselves to be one of those bodies. You'll have assessors that work for them and can also do independent assessments for you to help you get prepared for this. There'll be registered provider organizations, and there's several of those that are out there now that are companies that can help the suppliers prepare themselves if they need those types of resources. You may find that there are organizations that decide to get some of their own people registered as assessors or registered practitioners so that you have internal resources who really understand all these processes. And then there'll be suppliers like you that when the time comes will be organizations seeking certification. So those organizations seeking certification will have this ecosystem of training and education and preparation and assessments that can help you be ready for this accreditation process. So I'm going to pause here for just a minute and ask a quick question as to whether any of you have actually completed a CMMC assessment. Have you done an assessment of your own environment? Have you, at a minimum, done your NIST 800-171? Well, it looks like over actually 3/4 of the folks that have joined this session have not done their own assessments yet. So what I would tell you is now's the time to start getting familiarized, or speed up getting familiarized with this process and begin that, because if you plan to continue to serve in this arena, you're going to have to do that. And I'm going to talk to you now a little bit about some tools that can help you with this. So our company, SureShield, provides a number of solutions that help in it's a software platform that can help in a lot of these different processes that help you be prepared and be continuously ready for what's coming with this. And we're going to focus specifically on one that we're going to make available to you to help you in that initial assessment process. So we can help do things like the crosswalk. So as I mentioned, many organizations are going to be at CMMC level 3 and up. Well, a lot of the controls are under the NIST 800-171 framework, and that particular framework today you need to be complying with and submitting. So with our product, you'll see that you can actually conduct an assessment that will meet both requirements. It will just add on the other additional controls that you would need to look at for the CMC requirements, but you don't necessarily have to do all of an audit on both. We can show you how you can do one and crosswalk that information. We do provide tools that can allow you to go in and scan your environment and look at the vulnerabilities. This is part of an overall system security plan process that you need to be doing to identify where there could be holes or leaks or vulnerabilities in your infrastructure, and we can help you identify those very quickly and tell you how to resolve them and help you fix them so that you're ready. We also have tools that can, as I mentioned, part of this is in understanding the different levels of maturity. There is what they call CUI data, controlled unclassified information, that if you're housing, you have to prove that you have methodologies to properly protect that data, because that is the type of data that has been stolen and caused these problems. And for current processes today, we have tools that can actually automate the submission of the plan of action and milestone and the system security plans that you have to be complying with today. What I'm going to focus on today is a tool called ComplyShield, and we're going to show you how you can use ComplyShield to actually begin your pre-assessment process or your assessment process. It will help you identify problems. It will help you identify where you stand. I can show you how the crosswalks work within that environment. And as I mentioned, we're going to make this product available to those of you who are interested in utilizing it to begin this process in and of itself. So with that, I'm going to pause for a minute, and I'm going to exit here and open up our SureShield application, and I'm going to come in here quickly. And I'm going to pick up a customer called Stanley Aeronautics. And I'm going to go into what we call our compliance manager solution. So this actually provides a dashboard of all the what we call system controls that you've activated for your site. So ComplyShield is a platform to conduct and manage any type of framework or compliance assessments you may need to do. In this case, for these demonstration purposes, what I have done is activated the controls for CMMC and NIST 800-171. So as at a level 3 process. So as I mentioned before, NIST has 110 controls, CMMC has 130. So combined, there's 240 quote unquote controls in here. Another thing that we also provide with this solution are standardized policies and procedures that relate to all the controls. You can take avail of a library that we provide to you because any control is associated with a particular process or a policy around it. So we provide all those policies. You have the ability to go in and modify and edit and update them for your own organization as you see fit, or you can even import your own policies into the system. And for this particular organization, while I'm not going to spend time on it, they've also activated what we call our security solution, Security Shield, where they're doing their asset scanning. And this tool is helping them identify vulnerabilities that they have in their environment. Excuse me. But I'm going to go into this area called controls, and you'll see on my right-hand side a filter that I have. So it's first opening up the complete, all the things that are in the environment that I've set up. So you can see I have the CMMC regulations and standards and the NIST 800-171 standards. And I can segment this data in any way I want. So if I wanted to just take a look at CMMC controls, you'll notice that it just shifted. If I wanted to just look at NIST controls, then it would just shift and you'd see that it's just NIST standards that I'm looking at. If I want to look at issues like status areas or particular functional areas, all you need to do is go down to those, and it basically filters that information as you see fit. So I'm going to just briefly go into an area called awareness and training. So I'm going to go into this tool, and what I'm wanting to show you in here is a little bit around how this functions across the two different frameworks and actually synchronizing these together. So you'll notice here in this particular view, I have a NIST control that's around awareness and training. Ensure that managers, system administrators, and users of organizational systems are made aware of, and so on. You'll also notice down here in number 4, the exact same control under CMMC is listed here as well. So as I mentioned, there's a crosswalk, or there's a crossover between these. So what the system will allow you to do is, and in the case of this, you can see that both of these are right now non-implemented or not compliant. And the reason those terminologies are different is because the terminologies with CMMC are slightly different than the terminologies for NIST. So actually doing the assessment and doing the work is very simple. You just click on that particular item, and you'll notice that it will bring up the question. It will ask me, tell me what the question is, what citation does it address, what's the control risk. As I mentioned before, it also has the associated policies and procedures in here. There's implementation guidance. So if you were to click on this, it would give you guidance on how to address this particular control. You have the ability to add comments. You have the ability to source evidence that backs up that compliance. And within here, so I'm going to go ahead and now change this from in this case, not implemented to implement it. And we even give you some additional tools that can be modified, for instance, that can add comments that support your reason for why this is implemented. You can, at any given point in time, go ahead on in and modify those comments as well. So I'm going to save this. Okay. And right now, we're going to go exit back out. And we should see that that particular question is now listed as implemented. You'll note, though, that the similar question related with CMMC currently is not. It's still saying non-compliant. Now, I could go back in here and click it and say that it's compliant, but we have tools, if you see here, called the Sync NIST and CMMC. And the first thing it shows you is that crosswalk. So these are all the crosswalks across the NIST 171 items and the CMMC items. I simply have to go say sync my responses. And if I go back to that particular control area, you'll now see, without having to go in and answer that question has now been answered as compliant. So this functions across anything. And where, again, our customers find a lot of value is the fact they can complete the things they need to do now, like the NIST 800-171 requirements. They synchronize that and they're already ahead of the game in meeting their compliance requirements for CMMC. Couple of other things to just go through in here before we get into opening this up for some questions is we provide a tremendous number of different types of reports for you. So let me just get back to my apps briefly. And I'm going to go into my Comply Shield reports. Now, for those of you I'm sure are aware, as we said before, with the NIST process, there are documents and reports that need, DFARS reports that currently need to be submitted to the SSP, the Supplier Support Portal. And those include a report on NIST 800-171, the assessment score, a system security plan, and a plan of action and milestones. So we provide all of these for you. And as you know, NIST has a particular scoring algorithm that's out, that when you submit those scores, I believe the highest score that you can achieve is 110. So in this particular group right now, the Stanley Aeronautics, they're at a score of 72. Okay, and that means that there are things that have not been applied as of yet. If and when those are updated, this score will switch in accordance to whatever the value of that score is based on it being implemented. So if I were to go back and change, for instance, that score that I had on the awareness training back to not implemented, my assessment score would go down to a 71. So it's dynamic. You can see how things modify and change instantly over time. And it helps you on being able to see how you continue to improve so that you're prepared for this process. The other items, as I mentioned, that come out of this, if you are not in compliance completely, then it's required that you do a plan of action and milestone report and submit that. And so we actually output that report for you. All of our reports can be either downloaded into PPTs, you can generate PDFs off them, you can download them into Excel, you can download them into Word, you can schedule reports. So if you want certain ones to go out on a certain day of the week or in any type of process, you can schedule those and make sure that they go out to different individuals. And in this case, with a plan of action and milestone, for those areas that are non-compliant, you basically need to tell them when you plan on implementing them and when the scheduled completion date is expected to be. And that has to be submitted to them. The same goes for your system security reports as well, system security plan. So we will output that system security plan for you so that you can update that plan and make that available to meet the current requirements. And that is this particular tool. If I were to run that, it will output the framework for that plan and take information out of the system that can be inputted in here and then allow you to create this, because again, this is something else that has to be provided. So we do this to make it a more automated process for you. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. And we'll go back into the presentation. And really, to help, as we talked about before, it's very important right now that you as an organization begin that process. And it appears, at least from the polls that we've done, that a lot of the folks that have joined this call haven't done this yet. It is coming, and the most important thing you can do right now is do your own assessment. Get an idea of where you have issues so they can help you to very quickly figure out what other types of resources you may need to help you get ready for this process. And then help you better judge within that CMMC ecosystem who perhaps you want to be working with or where that assistance may be if you don't have that internal expertise yourself. So with a tool like ComplyShield, it can help you really conduct that single assessment and harmonize across all these. It can help you meet the current requirements that you have, and it will help prepare you for that CMMC audit. And ideally, it lowers your overall security risk and liability. It's very simple and easy to implement. And ultimately, it's going to assure, if you put the proper processes in place, it's going to assure that you're able to participate in future contracts and current contracts to protect your business, bid for new business, and really stay ahead of those who may or may not be doing this. So just to summarize, as we talked about today, you still have to do that 800-170 fund. It's a requirement today, and you need to make sure that that information is submitted. But you can leverage technology like ours to keep yourself in compliance with that and prepare yourself for this audit that is coming, and most likely will accelerate the rollout of this year. So we'll go ahead and open this for questions. As you notice, there's a Q&A button. And at the end, we'll also offer to any of those who would like to get a trial of the software to let us know, and we'll make sure we note that. And as part of the follow-up to this, give you access to the ComplyShield platform for NIST and CMMC. But if there's any other information you'd like, you can certainly go to info@sure-shield.com or to our website, sure-shield.com, to learn more about the company, request more information, schedule an additional demonstration, whatever that may be. So Chandi and Sanjay, if you want to join back in and let me know what questions we may have from the audience. So I think there was a question about folks that were not, certainly sure of whether they had to do this or not. But I would tell you, if you are a provider who is intending to do business with the Department of Defense, currently does do business with the Department of Defense, the answer isn't, do I have to do this? The answer is yes, you actually have to. And you have current and future requirements that will come along with that process. A couple of other questions. I see one. So can you explain again the relationship between NIST and CMMC? Just to reiterate, NIST is a current cyber posture process that you have to comply with, and you have to submit certain data to the Department of Defense to show that you are meeting these requirements. It is a self-assessment process. So those controls need to be monitored. They need to be measured. You need to do your scoring to tell them how you scored on that assessment, and you need to submit that data to them. The CMMC, as we mentioned again, is just I would call it the next hyper level of NIST. It's going to add more controls to it, but NIST is going to be a subset of that. So by doing your NIST audits, utilizing a tool like ours, we can actually harmonize that across the other CMMC requirements. So you're not, quote unquote, double assessing yourself. You'll do it once for the pieces you need to do for NIST, and you'll do the additional components you're going to need to do for CMMC. So there's a question about if you're working with detention facilities or prisons. The answer is if they are prisons or the like that are part of the Department of Defense, they could be, then the answer is yes, you will need to comply with these. And keep in mind, there are a lot of other government-related contracts that are out there, and new mandates coming around them. We're actually conducting a seminar tomorrow on an issue that revolves around anybody serving the government, about certain companies that you are actually forbidden from working with if you want to work with government contracts, and that goes beyond the DoD. The other thing I will mention, and it is expected that CMMC will most likely become a standard across the whole federal government. So while it currently is primarily focused on some requirements by the Department of Defense, the expectation is that will be carried forward across anybody that's serving governmental agencies, because the theft of data is not just at our defense level, it's at a whole lot of different areas, as we very well know with the number of the most recent events that have taken place. And then I have just another question about costing of the Comply Shield. So we provide, as part of this, as I mentioned, we'll provide both those frameworks to you. And we offer that on a trial basis. So you'll get a 30-day free trial to test it out and see how it works for you. But it's a very, very cost-effective tool. When you continue to use it, it's only about $1,500 a year for use. And it really, as we've mentioned before, this will not be a static process. It's a continuous process. So you'll need to be constantly reviewing and updating your survey and fixing problems to get yourself in the proper posture to meet these new accreditation requirements. Just a couple of other quick questions. So I'm just curious as to whether any of you have scheduled an independent review or audit as of yet. And then lastly, we'll take a quick poll on those of you who may be interested in receiving a trial. So of all the folks that have joined this session today, it's, at least with this audience, no one has scheduled an independent review. So what I would encourage you to do is, like we said, get out a little bit ahead of the game and go in and do your first assessment, use a tool like ours, and that will help you better position yourself and understand what you may need to do and what other resources you may need to help you make sure that you're going to pass this accreditation process. And Chandi and Sanjay, I don't see any other questions, so we'll just finish by asking again, for those of you who are participating, as we've done before, we've had a lot of people that have gone ahead and taken taken their opportunity to trial this out. If you're interested in trialing the solution, please indicate so, and we will make sure we get you set up. But also keep a note that this particular presentation will be shared with you. Those of you who have participated will be sharing the content with you. We'll also be sharing the recording of this presentation. And then we'll make a note again for those who may not be interested right now. We'll just remind you that should you in the future, you can just contact us and make that available. And for those of you who have indicated you would like to get a trial started, we will go ahead. We have that information. Keep your eyes out for an email independently from our follow-up from this session, because sometimes that invite to the solution can end up in your spam folder. So just check, but shortly, by tomorrow, you should receive all of this information, the content, the recording, and your invite into the program. So with that, I think I bought you back a little bit of time, I hope. We can open up or stay open for just another couple of questions if there are any, and if not, we want to thank all of you for your participation, and we will certainly be here to help you in any way that we can. I don't see any other questions coming across right now. Let me just look. Great. So with that, we want to thank everyone for participating. We've bought you back a little bit of your precious time, and look for that follow-up information. Thank you, everybody.